Greetings and welcome to Nathan Nile Official. If you've never seen my face in a video before, my name is Nathan Nile. This is my personal channel where I do vlogs, reviews, and anything else that happens to catch my fancy. And this video is part of The Naked Truth, a series started by lovely lady Trisha Hershberger. And today, the subject she's talking about is Batman versus Superman, a debate that I've had many times in my life. And in case this wasn't enough of a hint for which side I'm choosing to debate on this time, let's take this one step further. I'm not going to pop the buttons because I like this shirt. Ugh. There is no S on this thing. Sorry, you just... Ugh. So yeah, I'm here to argue for Superman today, but I'm not going to say definitively that Superman is better, because better is an opinionative word. And that's the thing about opinions. Everyone has them. You know, and neither one of them is actually better. Who you enjoy more depends on who you are as a person. But it also, there's something to be said about, there's this old Stan Lee quote that you guys probably know a little bit better than me, where he asked like who would win in a fight between blah blah and blah blah, and Stan was like, well, that depends on who's writing it. You know, and that's basically what this entire debate comes down to. Who's better, Batman and Superman? Well, that depends on who's arguing. You know, and it depends on who writes the stories. You know, growing up, I always preferred Batman for the reason that everyone always says, because, oh, Superman's not relatable. Bullets bounce off of him. He doesn't die, whereas Batman, he's a human being, and literally everything could kill him. So he has to be, like, super smart and super vigilant and plan 10 steps ahead. Like, his entire life is a game of chess. He has to be very careful because the slightest misstep can just cause a lot of pain and suffering for him and those around him. You know, and growing up, I wasn't huge into comic books, but I knew enough people that were into comic books, and my uncle worked at a comic book store. So, like, but I mostly read Spider-Man, X-Men, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Batman. That was pretty much it. And the first Superman story that I ever read was, I mean, I'd seen all of the TV shows that were on, because the 90s were a great decade with all those animated shows. But the first Superman comic book that I ever read was The Death of Superman, and I read it specifically for that title. It's like, Superman dies? You know I have to see this. And Doomsday quickly became my favorite comic book character ever, because, you know, he just came and beat the shit out of Superman. Like, there was no greater plan. There was no complicated scheme. There was one plot. He shows up, he starts punching people, Superman shows up to fight him, and ends up getting punched to death. I loved that. It was awesome and amazing. And it wasn't until I started getting older, like with a show like Smallville, like I really loved that show, and while that was still on the air, there was this one amazing human being named John Ondrasik, who you guys might recognize him better under his name Five for Fighting. He had a song called It's Not Easy, and like a combination of that song along with watching, I stopped at season 6, but Smallville was a pretty good show while it was on. I stopped at season 6. I only liked the first 4 seasons. But anyway, that song was like, because of those two things, you know, being able to look at the young life of Clark Kent and being able to like witness his growth and just see him in a different light, along with some of the things that was said in that song, like even heroes have the right to dream, which I had never thought of it, because I thought heroes wanted to be heroes, but then there are certain times, like with the whole Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility, and that's part of Superman's thing, because like mentally, since he knows that he is capable of protecting the entire planet, he feels this very strong sense of responsibility to do it. It doesn't necessarily mean that they want to, it just means that like you feel like it's something that you have to do because you are someone that the world is capable of depending on, and it would be wrong to ignore people that need help when you are more than capable of going out there and helping them. And every time I see the Dawn of Justice trailer, like I keep thinking back to that song, because Batman's all like, "Do you bleed?" And then I just immediately hear John's voice in my head. Even heroes have So, I mean, for me, the thing about Superman and the reason I'm arguing for him now is that I've realized as I've grown older that even though I like Batman more and I think there are more complex characters, Superman is an easily complex I mean, I think Batman has more complex stories and they're more fun because the stakes are higher. But I think Superman is just as complex a character as well if you're willing to look past the pretty face and dive deeper. I mean, sure, on the surface he definitely seems like that perfect cookie cutter superhero that, like, you know, they're made at factories, they print him out in mass and they all look exactly alike. You put him on the shelf and he just looks so great, all nice and shiny. But I mean, he's got his own mental issues as well, just like anybody. I mean, for one thing, he's an alien living on this planet. He's the only one of his kind. And I'd understand that feeling. Like, there are storylines where that becomes a huge part of it, that feeling of isolation where he's like, sure, I'm surrounded by thousands of people who all look exactly like me, but I'm not one of them. I may live on this world, but I'll never be part of that. And I understand that feeling so well. Like, feeling like even though you exist on this world, you'll never really be one of them. You know, you're just kind of trying your best to blend in and not stick out. And I think a lot of people can understand that feeling. And also there's the feeling of, you know, just the I'm sorry if this video is going to be a really long one. But there's also that feeling of just the expectations of him because he is the golden boy, because he is that perfect picture. You know, he's not allowed to bleed because bullets bounce off of him. You know, you're not allowed to ever be hurt. You're not allowed to feel pain. You know, that's something that I think a lot of people can relate to, especially young people. Like, I know growing up as a man, like, I was told big boys don't cry, and like I learned how to repress everything because it's not manly to show emotions. And, you know, a lot of young people especially, you know, you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your life and everyone else is just putting pressure on you. You're not allowed to have your own dreams. You have to live our dream. You know, and that's, you're expected to be a certain person, to live a certain way. And I think that's something that Superman has to deal with. He has to live up to these expectations that people place on him, you know, and having just, you know, having to live up to the standard that they set for him, and just be everything that they need him to be. And also, there's also the whole thing about how Bruce Wayne, he's the Dark Knight, and he says it all the time, so many different ways. Like, I live alone, like I walk alone, but no, he doesn't. I mean, if you read the comics, he's had like 30 different sidekicks at different points in time. I mean, he's worked with so many different people. I mean, he's had 5 that I can name, and I haven't even read all of them. But like, you know, Dick, Carrie Kelly, Jason, Tim, Damian. I mean, that's 5 different Robins. He just keeps on replacing them one at a time. I mean, he could start an entire football team with all the different people that he's worked with, that have been his allies and stuff in battle. But Superman, he's had like 3 or 5 that I can think of. Like, I know the only ones that I know of are like Steel, Supergirl, and Superboy. And even them, in the first place, he didn't necessarily choose them. They were kind of forced on him, and they didn't stick around for long. They just pop up from time to time, but they end up kind of going off living their own lives. Superman lives alone. He lives in a greater isolation. Batman, he puts up this front like I want to be alone, but that's only because he's afraid of being hurt again, and he's afraid of losing people he cares about again. But Superman has that exact same thing, even though I feel like it's more justifiably so with Batman, because yes, Superman, you lost an entire planet, but you were an infant. You don't remember a single one of these people, so I feel like, you know, the pain is less real for you than it is for Batman, who was actually there, Bruce, to see his parents die. And I feel like that's the one part where definitely I think Bruce's pain and anguish is more justifiable. But even so, in his daily actions, Superman tends to isolate himself at a much greater level than Batman does. You know, and I remember this one time I believe it was the Justice League Unlimited TV series, because I remember it was a cartoon. That much I do remember. Uh, Superman said something once. They were in a battle, and he said it to, I believe, to like Batman was there, maybe some of the other leaguers, but I know for a fact he said this to Batman, like, bullets bounce off of me, they don't bounce off of you, and like that's why he wants to be up front all the time, because the more bullets that hit him, the less that they hit everybody else, and that also goes back to the sense of like duty and responsibility, feeling like it's necessary for me to take all of these hits because I can, because my body absorbs it, because I am capable of protecting all of you. That means I have no choice but to protect all of you. And so I feel like Superman, it may seem like he's not a complex character at all, but if you dive deep, he is still human. Like, he may not be from Earth, but he is still just like a human being with thoughts and emotions just like the rest of us. And everybody has these complex natures deep down inside of them if you're just willing to look a little further. But most people aren't willing to look behind the pretty face, He's just a guy, he's only a man in a silly red sheet, And it's just, he's trying his best to live a life, to live a good life the only way that he knows how, just like every other human on this planet. He's just as complex a person as anyone else. Now, as a hero, I can understand people hating on him, because as a hero, he's harder to root for, because like you said, the stakes are never that high with him. Bullets bounce right off of him. It takes something colossal, like an unkillable killing machine like Doomsday, or just Lex Luthor, who is basically just if Bruce Wayne was evil, because he's incredibly rich and well off, and he's able to and he's very smart and comes up with all these schemes, and so it's just, like Doomsday, Lex, Darkseid, and the armies of Apocalypse. It's just, like, it takes a lot to actually, before Superman is ever in any real danger. But that alone does not mean he's completely unrelatable as a character. He may not, he as a hero, it may not be as much as tense, the situations that he finds himself in, because Batman, on a daily basis, any street thug could kill him. Like, if he ever slips up and has a bad day, any 10-year-old walking down the street could just pull out a gun and shoot him, and boom, Batman's dead. And so that point I get, but if that's where you stop, then you're really missing out on the entirety of the experience. Superman, he's as complex a character as Batman could ever be. Everybody has issues. Like, we're all fucked up mentally in some way, shape, or form. Nobody is perfect. We've all got stuff that we have to deal with up in here that the rest of the world doesn't get to be a part of. And so, are any of them really better? No. I enjoy the Batman storylines more because the stakes are higher, but as I've grown up and taken a deeper look at myself and deeper looks at the characters, I've realized that my personality definitely more closely mirrors Superman than Batman. And so for me, I've grown to love the character more and more as the years go by. And I think as long as it's very well written by someone who knows what they're doing, Superman can easily be a very complex character that you can get plenty of enjoyment out of watching his story, like in seeing his growth. And I am mostly excited for Dawn of Justice. I'm gonna watch it. Now, it's just a matter of when. Am I gonna watch it opening weekend, or am I gonna wait 2 or 3 weeks? Because I know I'm going to go to theaters and watch it. It's just like, I'm so scared because Doomsday just didn't look that good. I'm worried about all of this, but it is one that I'm looking forward to. I enjoyed Man of Steel. I understand the complaints people have about it. I have those same complaints, but it's still the best Superman movie we've had in a long, long time. So, Man of Steel sucked, mate. Not Man of... Was it Man of Steel? No, Superman Returns. Superman Returns, where he had the kid. That movie sucked major ass. But Man of Steel was pretty awesome. And so, I'm looking forward to Dawn of Justice, and it's just this is gonna be a good year for movies. We've already had some really great ones. Like Deadpool was amazing, Zootopia was amazing, the Civil War trailer where Spider-Man shows up, that got me all excited. So yeah, just every character is good. Like there's a reason Superman has managed to survive this many years. I think he was invented what 80 years ago. I mean, it's not like he doesn't have any value beyond his, heat vision and ice breath and the fact that bullets bounce off of him. I mean, there's more to him than just a pretty face and impermeable skin. There is a lot to this, a lot of depth to this character, and I think the biggest reason that most of the time when people give him flack for not being a good character, it's because they don't take time to actually look at the character. They just look at the image that is portrayed of him, just, the pretty face and the unkillable god. But he's just as relatable as anyone else in any comic book that you can read. And I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. If you enjoyed hearing me talk, like, subscribe, all that other bullshit. And thank you, Trisha, for choosing this subject that was very easy for me to talk about. Too easy, actually. I have no idea how long this video is. I'm scared to look. So, yeah. Also, for those of you who care at all, there are things happening in my real life. Stuff is moving forward. Starting a company, equipment has been bought, auditions are being had. We're shooting test things right now. So yeah, stuff is moving forward with all of that, which is why I haven't been as active on my channel as I would like to, and why I will continue to be sparingly active in the future, especially once summer hits, which unfortunately it's basically summer in Texas already. It's been getting to the 90s already. What the fuck? Anyone who actually argues that global warming doesn't exist, just make them live here for a week without air conditioning. They will change their minds very quickly. Ugh.